My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality-Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life.
Dan, you recently had a very fascinating meeting with a nurse. Why don't you tell us what happened?
Well, we help nurses all day, every day. And in some cases, they are widowed or divorced. And in this case, we met with a nurse who's getting close to age 63. She's been widowed for about 6 or 7 years. She was married for a very long time. And she was looking at being able to retire. And at the beginning of our meetings, we focus very hard on, how can we help you improve quality of life? What is the picture that you're trying to create? And she said, well, I'm going to work until I'm 65. And I said, how did you pick 65? And I thought she would say health insurance, Medicare.
Mhm.
That would be a typical answer. But she actually said, well, I just feel like I need more. And I said, well, what does more mean to you? And she goes, well, I'm pretty sure I could retire now, but I feel like I need to save more. And I thought that was interesting because that's not quality of life. Having more is not quality of life. If that's your goal, you should work forever because working forever
Mhm.
will give you more. And she goes, well, I'm
Mhm.
not going to work forever. I'm going to work until 65. But I said, well, how did you pick 65? And she goes, I don't really know. And I'm like, well, if money were no object, you just didn't have to worry about health insurance, you didn't have to worry about having more, any of that, when would you leave? And she goes, oh, absolutely, I would leave right now. And I'm like, well, hold on a second, because that sounds like quality of life to me. If you would leave right now, that means you feel like there are better ways to spend your time than going to work. And if you're financially able to choose, which at this point I knew nothing about her, I'm like, if you're financially able to choose to leave now, why wouldn't you do that? And she goes, well, I'm very afraid of running out of money. And I said, is there any way I can show you in this meeting that you're going to be okay? And she goes, I'm not sure, but I'm going to work until 65. And I said, so as we go through this process, it is critically important to understand that our greatest value as advisors is to give you a perspective outside of how you view your finances. She lives in her world. She went through a traumatic experience losing her husband, and
Mhm.
she had to raise her kids through college and things like that, and she was very focused on other people and very immersed in this world where she had experienced this trauma. And I'm like, if we share a perspective that is outside of your lived experience, it might allow you to kind of think about it in a different way. And so we go through this meeting, and one of the things that was fascinating is I said, well, if you decide to retire, whether it's at 65 or earlier, I'm going to tell you to take Social Security right away. And she goes, oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to wait on Social Security. And I said, hold on a second. I am not telling you to take your Social Security. I am going to tell you to take your deceased spouse's survivor Social Security. And she goes, oh, well, he made less money than I did. And so I can't do that. And I'm like, well, yes, you can. And then what you're going to do is when you retire, you're going to claim that benefit first. And then you're going to allow your own benefit to continue to grow until you're probably 70, which is the latest you can allow it to grow. And then you're going to claim your own much larger Social Security. And she goes, I can do that? And I'm like, well, absolutely you can. Well, she had no idea. She had just been told that if her retirement benefit was bigger than his retirement benefit, then she would claim one or the other, which would be hers. And I'm like, that's different than survivor benefits. And a lot of people don't know that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, we go through this whole meeting, and we determine she is in excellent financial shape. She can easily retire now if she chooses to. And she has a very large pension. Her pension plus her eventual Social Security is going to be more than enough to maintain. She's going to make more money in retirement than she is working. And she makes good money working right now. She's working very hard as a nurse. And so when I showed her that, you could just see her start to like think. And the whole point of offering perspective is that it can open up a world of possibility. Now, when we tell nurses these things, and this happens to us every once in a while, if they have been divorced or maybe they are widowed, they've been through this difficult situation. They just move into this survival mode of I'm going to work hard, I'm going to save more, and I'm going to make sure that I'm okay because I have to take care of myself. And when we show them these things, now they just slowly, it's not like she's going to go retire tomorrow. Like
Mhm.
not at all. She needs time to be able to just kind of wrap her brain around this idea that she has the possibility to be able to choose what she wants to do from a quality of life perspective. And that is absolutely the greatest value that we offer to the people we help.
It absolutely is. I think a lot of things were brought up in this conversation, but do you think that that age 65 is something that we are kind of groomed into believing like that is the age that you're supposed to retire at? Because I feel like just growing up, that age has always been thrown out there, 65, 65, 65. So do you think that is part of why she threw that number out?
Absolutely. We hear so many people say, well, what's the typical age of retirement? And if
Hmm.
somebody were asked, what's the typical age of retirement? They would likely say one of two ages. It would either be 65 or it'd be 67. And
Hmm.
65 is when you qualify for Medicare. And it used to be a long time ago, it was full retirement age for Social Security. Now that
Hmm.
has since changed. It went
Hmm.
up to 66, then it went up to 67. And so now a lot of people go, oh, well, full retirement age is 67 because that's their full Social Security retirement age. So we'll hear 65 or 67 commonly cited. And this is where that whole like noise of the world around us kind of fits in.
Hmm.
We'll talk about noise a lot, is when we get bombarded from the world around us that you really can't retire earlier than 65 or
Hmm.
67 or whatever age, that influences us. And we
Yeah.
start to wrap our brain around, we anchor to the idea that we are going to retire at this age. And
Hmm.
then when we come in and we say there is no normal retirement age, I've helped people retire in their 50s, their early 60s. We have people who are working in their 70s. And
Hmm.
so everybody is different, and that work should all be based on quality of life,
Hmm.
assuming you have the financial means to choose what you are doing with your time. So if
Yeah.
work is fulfilling, satisfying, rewarding in some way, we don't care if you work forever. But if
Hmm.
you tell us that your goal is to do something else with your time and you would prefer to be retired, then if we show you you're financially able to choose, now you start to wrap
Hmm.
your brain around that idea and you start to slowly think about, well, what would bring me quality of life? Is it spending time with my grandchildren? Is it, volunteering? Is it something else with my community? And now you eventually might reach a point where you go, work is less rewarding, less fulfilling, less satisfying, and there are other opportunities that I would like to pursue.
Yes, and as you've already said, I think that's the key part of what we offer is being able to provide a different perspective. And our another goal of ours is just to be able to provide people with that flexibility of choice because like you said, some people have no goals of retirement and some people do want to retire early if they can. Um, and so I think that we are able to put everything in perspective and align their resources with whatever their goal may be so that they can have that quality of life that they desire. You also talked about her saying she feels like she needs more and more and more. And I think that also comes from that noise that we hear you need this specific amount before you're able to retire. And just like with retirement age, that differs person to person. And I think that's something that we are strong in our client meetings because we kind of provide, I guess, a baseline of by asking them, if you're able to live off of what you're earning now, do you think you can do so? We factor in those extra things. If they do say, oh, I love to travel, we factor those things in so that we are providing them with some type of guideline to show them that, yes, you will be okay. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, there's been surveys or studies done that indicate the greatest fear for women, specifically women over the age of 50, is running out of money and being homeless.
Mhm.
I mean, it is a very, very common fear for women, especially women who are on their own through divorce or being widowed. And so we understand that going in. And in this case, we realize that that's the thing that's under her control is working.
Yeah.
So I work, I get a check, and I can take care of myself and my family. And I feel
Mhm.
confident that I work, I get a check, I know how that process works. When we start to talk about giving up that work, the thing that they have control over, the thing they feel most secure in, and we
Mhm.
start to say, you could choose to retire, and now you're going to get a pension. In her case, you're going to get Social Security. They don't necessarily trust those things that are outside of
Mhm.
their control. They have seen life throw them a curveball that
Mhm.
they never anticipated. And so when all of a sudden, we start to talk about things that they feel are outside of their control, that makes them very uncomfortable. So it is
Mhm.
a process to work through that lived experience that they have, start to cut through the traumas they've experienced, and get them to a point of empowerment where they can overcome their fears and start to
Mhm.
think in terms of quality of life.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And that's a very legitimate fear to have. I think for some people, it may not be a fear, it may be actual reality that there is a plausible situation where they may actually run out of money. And that's in those cases where that strong financial foundation hasn't been established. So there may be debt in play. There may be a lack of emergency reserves at hand. They may not have saved for retirement and don't have a pension available to them. So I think in this situation, this nurse obviously had things all together. But I think that's important that people do go back to that hierarchy of cash flow that we always talk about and make sure that foundational piece is in place. Those, getting your employer match, paying off debt, having those emergency reserves at the least, so that you are kind of positioning yourself to where, retirement isn't as challenging or difficult.
Yeah, we
Anything
tell
else? Go
we tell people
ahead.
all the time, like at the end of her meeting,
Mhm.
I said, it's always like it's a good thing for us when we can give good news to people.
Mhm.
This was a very positive meeting. She's in
Mhm.
good shape. That is not always the case. We
Right.
help many people through our group advisory agreements where, for whatever reason, they are not in very good financial shape. And so the key there is to take steps to move in a positive direction. And it's not magic. It's not like you can just go from struggling to being in great shape. It takes time, it takes consistent actions, but
Mhm.
the key is to start. And
Yeah.
that's what we do for a lot of these people, is to allow them to move in that positive direction.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing this case study with us. Is there anything else you want to add before we close out?
Well, I hope that if there are any, it could be men or women, but in many
Mhm.
cases, we're helping a lot of women. And if you feel like, I'm okay, I think I'm in pretty good financial shape, but I have a lot of fear.
Mhm.
Talking to someone like us and getting that different perspective starts to open up possibility. It starts to cut through that fear, and it starts to empower you to move towards quality of life.
And that's what's the most important. All right. Well, thank you so much. And until next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.